My name is Councillor Davey. I'm Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. And the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, for those who don't know, is the part of the council made up of elected councillors who hold the executive members and officers to account for their decisions, and also the local NHS and Forest and Police to try and ensure that we have the best possible services for our residents. And one of the functions of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee is also to provide a place where members, councillors can raise concerns in the form of what's called a call-in about decisions of the executive, the cabinet, and in this case it's a call-in from Councillor Scott Ainslie regarding the Cressingham Gardens estate. And that has to be done, the call-in has to be done in a certain time frame, so that's why we're here in the middle of August, which is probably not the ideal time to be doing this, it's lots of people on holiday. We have to do it a certain amount of time away from the executive decision and then a certain amount of time away from when the councillors called it in. I have introduced myself, perhaps we can just go around the table starting with Councillor Ainslie and then round to introduce ourselves, please.
Councillor Scott Ainslie, Green Councillor, and I'm from St Leonard's Ward.
Neil Vokes, Programme Director for Estate Regeneration.
Julian Hart, Programme Manager for Estate Regeneration. Good evening, Councillor Matthew Bennett, Cabinet Member for Housing.
Helen Charles-May, Strategic Director for Commissioning. Councillor Louise Nathanson, Conservative Councillor for Clapham.
Matt Parr, Lib Councillor in Coldharbour Ward and Vice Chair of Scrutiny for Jobs and Housing.
Good evening, Nigel Hazelden. I'm a Councillor in Clapham Town Ward and I'm the Scrutiny Vice Chair for Neighbourhoods, Environment and Sustainability.
I'm David Rose from Democratic Services. Councillor Jacques Dyer, Battle Ward Vice Chair for Community Wellbeing.
Good evening, Claire Wilcox, I'm Councillor in Streatham South, Labour Councillor.
Ian Simpson, I'm a Labour Councillor in Streatham Hill Ward.
Alex Bigham, I'm Councillor in Stockport Ward.
Good evening, I'm Lynn Culture, I support the Overview and Scrutiny Committee.
Greg Carson, Principal of the Housing Property and Planning.
Thank you very much. I'm going to hand over to Elaine, who is the lead scrutiny officer, to explain the exact process. But just to say, you know, this is a meeting in public, and there will be an opportunity, especially for the people who have requested to speak. But it's also important that to note that it's a technical meeting where we're considering the specifics of Councillor Ainslie's call-in, not a more general public meeting about the whole nature of housing crisis in London or anything like that. We have a specific job to do about the specifics of Councillor Ainslie's call-in. So just to make that point, before I hand over to Elaine to set out the exact procedure.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just first of all several apologies that we've had for the meeting. Firstly, from Councillor Tim Briggs, who is substituted by Councillor Louise Nathanson. We've also had apologies from Councillor Neil Sabawal, and also from the two education co-optees, Lynette Murphy O'Dyer and Penny Smith Orr. And as the committee will be aware, the education co-optees can only vote on education issues, so we'll be able to formally participate in this meeting. Just to outline briefly the arrangements for the meeting, the purpose of the meeting, as the Chair's outlined, is to hear the call-in made by Councillor Scott Ainslie. There are two sets of papers which I hope members have got. So there is a larger document and then the response to the call-in, which is a smaller paper. There are three specific matters that Councillor Ainslie has raised in the call-in, and the Chair will be seeking for participants to focus on those three issues. The process will be that Councillor Ainslie will be asked to introduce his calling and for Councillor Bennett to comment and respond. There will be some time available for public questions, and again asking people to focus on the matters in hand. There are some requests to speak, and we would ask that people limit their comments please to 2 minutes. Then there will be an opportunity for committee members to specifically ask questions of both Councillor Ainslie and the Cabinet member, and then for the committee to decide what decision they would like to make. And there's 3 options available to the committee. They can, having heard all the evidence, they can either decide that they are in agreement with the Cabinet decision and therefore that decision stands. They can decide that there may be some issues that they want to make comments on and would submit those to the Cabinet for consideration, but that they don't want to refer the matter back, and that would therefore allow the decision to go ahead. Or if, having heard the discussions and the evidence, they wish to refer the matter back to the Cabinet for decision, the Cabinet then has 10 further working days to consider the issues raised by the committee and to make a decision.
Thank you, Elaine. So I will now hand over to Councillor Ainslie.
Is there a time restriction? No.
No, it's
just
not been, within reason.
Sure.
Oh, sorry, Councillor. Sure. I forgot to say, does anybody have any declarations of interest on this item? No. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd be failing in my role as a Lambeth councillor if I didn't point out that I don't want any more of taxpayers, council taxpayers' money wasted on further spending on regeneration plans for Cressingham Gardens ahead of this judicial review that's set for November. I think that that is a warning that we should heed, and we should bear that in mind. At the March Cabinet meeting, it was resolved that a viable regeneration proposal was brought back to Cabinet together with full supporting evidence. This didn't happen. Lib Peck said, certainly the 23 extra homes at council rent needs to be looked at, but it's been passed through. It said it would be considered at the master planning stage, but this is where you start incurring costs. Therefore, if you cannot achieve more than the 23 now, how are you going to achieve it when there's less money to spend in the future? 300 homes are being demolished, and over 200 current council homes being transferred out of the housing revenue account. At this demolition rate, 13,000 council homes, or over half Lambeth's entire council housing stock, would need to be demolished over the next 3 years in order for the council to meet its 1,000 extra new council rent homes. Now, there's historical issues of distrust from residents on Cressingham. Anytime there's been an issue on the estate, officers have given unclear answers and sometimes avoided the questions altogether. All the residents want is clear and effective communication so that they can make evidence-based decisions from Lambeth on financial and structural matters. We will show that this has systematically failed. For example, since 2012, when the consultation started, residents were in doubt when Lambeth said that there were major structural issues on the estate. Residents pushed to get what was known as the toll survey, an independent idea of the costs of issues within the estate. Now, Lambeth withheld this for a whole year after it was completed. And it was only a freedom of information request from Andrew Jacques, who's the major works program manager, revealed that the legal costs associated with failing to repair the estate would far exceed the 1.4 million it would have taken at that time to have carried out the repairs on the estate, going by the independent surveyor's estimations. But to come specifically to this reason for calling, I've called it in on 3 separate issues. One is on the validity of the test of opinion. Now, again, to echo Lib's words, she will not do anything that doesn't command the confidence of the residents. I'll step aside in a minute and let the residents point out and speak for themselves how their consultation has come across. You will hear people describe their first-hand opinions of what they saw as a sham test of opinion, describing it as a false pretension, full of leading questions. None of the yes-no questions are designed to elicit meaningful resident opinion. There are no questions on the quality or lack thereof of the consultations. There's an earlier draft of the test of opinion which came into my possession. I'm happy to pass it round to everyone, which contains some of the options that the residents themselves came up with, which, you know, for a cooperative council, one would have thought that would have been something that they certainly would have looked at and considered. So an early draft of this acuity test of opinion features the options which were resident-led, and I'm happy to pass this round. But this actually disappeared from the actual consultation that was done and test of opinion on people's doorsteps. So, Neil, if you want to pass that round, I'm sure you've seen it. But, so I will let others describe what happened, or what their opinions of the test of opinion was. The second reason for calling was on the viability assessment. Now, I've looked at this in great detail, this report from Airey Miller, starting on page 167 of your bundle of papers. There's no detailed calculations between pages 167 to 177. Now, how can you expect any councillor to make an informed decision based on these end figures? If you turn to page 179 of the Airey Miller report, clearly it says indicated finance costs will not be accurate. It's based on limited information. A full business plan, including major repair and replacement, should be produced to inform cash flow. None of this has been carried out. None of these figures are in this supposed financial viability report. There is a severe lack of detail. What, are councillors supposed to take you know, these final figures' words for it without any backup? I think not. I think we owe it to the public to be a bit more diligent than that. For example, option 5, which is full demolition, was not viable last year. It had a negative net present value of 26 million. However, officers are now reporting a positive 13 million net present value. But what assumptions and changes have been made to make it viable? Why can't we see the figures? Why can't we see the evidence? Where is the evidence for councillors to make that decision? Now, my supplementary question at last full council asked for Lambeth to follow leads of other councils who asked for developers to make viability assessments open to public scrutiny. This is council land, and you will not show these people the financial models, saying it's commercially sensitive. But it's council. It's not a private development. I have issues with private developments keeping their commercial viability secret. But for the council to be doing that is not acceptable. There's nothing in this report about a water pipeline which runs under Cressingham in the Airey Miller report. This could cost potentially millions, yet it's not been picked up. The special purpose vehicle, that's not been defined and has not been trialled elsewhere. In December 2014, in the Lambeth report called Building the Homes We Need, the decision of the establishment of a special purpose vehicle should have been implemented by July 2015. Well, the SPV defines the entire structure. Without it, again, how can councillors make informed, evidence-based decisions? This should have been in place by now. It's not. Where are the details? And how can we expect a decision to be passed when those details have not been revealed.